Hey guys, wanted to share my latest acquisition. This is the 70mm F-22 from Freewing. I am really excited about this. So, I prefer smaller planes. I go against the grain of most guys who want bigger, more expensive. I like the small planes. I've got the 70mm Yak. I have the 70mm Gripen. That, one of my first and favorite EDFs, some 70mm F-16, 70mm F-35, Su-30, 27 and dual 64, 70mm, or dual 64 again of the F-15, small F-14. I admit the bigger planes, the big F-14 and stuff, they fly great. The big 90mm F-22 flies great. But I really appreciate having a plane small. You can throw it in your car. You don't got to worry about taking wings off, how it'll fit. They fly great. They usually don't cost as much, so you're not panicking about having something go wrong as bad because it's not going to bankrupt you. So I owned the LX F-22 for years. I even modified mine to be 6S, and while it flew good and worked, I've been waiting for a new modern 70mm F-22 forever, and it finally came out. And so when this was released for pre-order, I grabbed it ASAP. So with that said, let's look through some of the things I've done on this and just give it a bit of a rundown before my flight. So first off, the plane itself looks really good. I appreciate that Freewing added these hard plastic edges here and at the leading edge of the wings and on the wingtips and on the nose. Really nice, right? That'll prevent a lot of hanger rash from happening. I really do appreciate them doing that. This is their first plane I've ever bought from them that has these raised panel markings. I'm kind of on the fence still about those. You know, here is a good example of the raised panels on this one. And then by comparison, here's the 90mm, which just has the recesses. I kind of think I still prefer just the recessed panel lines over these raised bumpy ones. But I will say it doesn't look as bad as I had thought it would based on photos. So some other things I've done. The original plane comes with servos that are totally exposed, black. I painted mine, same with on the wing. There's one for flaps, one for aileron on each wing. Painted those. Personal gripe. I remember back in the day, 10 years ago, I was buying Park Zone planes for $150 where they'd at least put some tape over these so that you couldn't see the servo. I don't know why manufacturers aren't doing that these days. It literally would cost pennies for them to include little squares of tape, just the size of these servos that have the right paint color already done from the factory. So all you have to do is peel it off, stick it on. Not even labor. All they have to do is throw those things in the box and let us deal with it. That way, if you want to swap a servo out, you can do that before putting the tape on. Because yeah, I painted this, but it's only because I have 20 cans of sample paint in my garage here. If I didn't, you're going to have to take this part down to Home Depot or something, get a paint match, come back, paint it, and then, by the way, this color is not the same color as the underside of the wing. It's a close enough match, but if you're really wanting to be accurate, that's two different paint colors. So I'm ranting. I just don't know why on these $300, $400, $500 model planes, the F-14, $500, look at that. I mean, it would be nice if they just provided some squares of tape. You could have taped over that and it would have been solved. But I'm ranting. I'm digressing. Let's get back on track. So I painted the servos. I also popped the canopy off and added a little bit of gold tinting using my airbrush to this so that it looks a little bit closer to the real plane. The original canopy is nice and clear. It's a really nice canopy. It really is. I just wanted it to look a little bit more gold, so that's what I did on mine. Next, let's talk about the battery compartment. So you take the battery off, and this is one of my smallest 4,000 milliamp pack batteries. I know a lot of guys run high voltage packs these days. I don't. I still run standard lipos. And you can see that this sucker takes up a good chunk of that battery bay. And I will tell you right here now, there are CG marks under the wings. I'll show you those in a minute. And this battery basically needs to be pushed as far back as possible for me to hit that CG point. So I got that battery back, fingers on the CG, up. See how it's just a bit leaning back. That's what I've heard is perfect. I haven't flown it yet, but I've been told that's like the perfect point. So it's okay. I'll be able to fly with the battery I want to in this thing, but if you've ever had the 90mm F-22, you're used to how much more space you have. Not the case in this one. A little bit more restrictive. And if you're going to fly a 5,000 milliamp pack, you're almost certainly going to be a little on the nose heavy side. Not that this plane won't fly like that, but just be aware. I did add an afterburner, so that's what you see here. This is a custom plug I made that plugs into the balance port on my battery and allows me to have an afterburner. I only did a single bulb instead of the bifurcated bulb, just because I don't want to restrict airflow out of the exhaust there. They have this little board up here. It's not a blue box like some of the Freewing planes, but it does have all the wires going into it, and then those wires go into your receiver. I cut a small piece of insulated foam like this, hot glued it, and shoved it all the way in the side, right next to it, all the way forward, and that's what I put my receiver on. So, because the battery is almost always going to need to go way back here, the receiver and all that can fit up here nice and snug out of the way. And then I have a satellite coming back here to the back, which, yes, it'll be right next to the battery, but it is the satellite. So I have this up here and there, and then this satellite here, so I have signal separation. There's the CG marks molded onto the wings. From what I've read so far from people's experience, that seems to be a pretty good spot. Maybe even a little further back if you really want some maneuverability. Here are the wing release mechanisms. I keep accidentally pushing this one. It comes off pretty easily. The wing release is a cool feature, not on this size plane. Like a bigger plane, like this, any of the big planes makes more sense. On something this small, it just seems unnecessary. Like, I mean, I guess it's good to have it rather than not have it, but I'm never going to take the wings off this thing. Maybe on some other aircraft, but not on this. It's just so small already, Here's my deflections. So you'll see, let me lower the flaps. This is per the manual. That little black dot is, I think the number is 8mm down from the top. And you can see I'm pretty much right on that. So that's my deflections. Here's my elevator or ailerons. And then my flaps are not based on the manual. They are just, my experience tells me that is probably about as much as I'm going to want on flaps for landing. And there's half, and there's up. I do not have any elevator programmed in right now with flaps. That will be something I'll find out when I fly. There's my rudder. So again, I'm not fancy. I'm not doing the Tailoron full delta setup. Mine is set up pretty basic, just like my big one is. And I'm going to fly it like that, and I think I'll be more than happy. I think that'll be all I really need. The last thing I wanted to mention is an issue I had while doing the assembly. So I'll show you a snip from the manual, but there's a metal rod here that you slide the elevator on, and then you screw it down with these tiny little screws. And what it screws into is nothing but a plastic cylinder, little plastic receptacle. This one went on just fine. I made sure not to over tighten it. I screwed it down until it was snug and stopped there. When I went to do this one, I tightened it gently, 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 and it never got snug. I could never get it to tighten up. I took the screw out and looked at it, and there's a crack in the housing itself. You're seeing a photo of it right now. That crack is making it so that the screw is not getting enough grip and could fall out pretty easily. I reached out to Motion RC. I showed them the photos. I said, hey guys, I made sure not to crank this down, but it's broken. Long story short, they said, yeah, no, you screwed it in wrong. This is your problem, not our fault. So even though you hear me here telling you right now, like I did this one and I knew what to do, I did it right, I went to do this one and it had the problem. What I did, since Motion RC wasn't going to replace it for me, I took some super glue. I don't know if you'll see it, but I put some glue around the circle, waited for it to harden, so that way that circle, where it cracked, hopefully now it's like the glue will harden and keep it from breaking anymore. And then when I put the screw in, I put some white Elmer's glue on it. Not CA, not anything that would be unremovable, but just some white Elmer's glue. And so when I did screw it down, even though it wasn't tight, that glue should hold this in place and prevent this elevator from sliding off. Hopefully. I guess we'll find out, won't we? So that's an issue I had, and I wanted to bring it to your guys' attention. So if you have this model, when you're screwing these in, I would recommend actually taking a photo and looking very carefully at the receptacle before doing anything. I don't want you to be like me where Motion claims, oh, it looks like you screwed it in and you broke it. Take a look at it ahead of time. And then when you do screw it in, be very cautious about making sure you don't over tighten it.